Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome. I am here with another installment of Top Tarot Trumps, a VR to Masha, wherein we share our favorite iterations of each major arcana card in turn. And I have arrived at card 20, Judgment. And I have picked 5 judgment cards to share, each of which I think does something interesting with the concept of judgment that depicts judgment in a way that I think adds to or says something really important about this particular card. It is one that in the Smith-Waite is not one of my favorite images. It is definitely one of the more, very overtly biblical kinds of cards, and it's definitely one that I struggled with initially, and I think I'm probably not alone in that. But I think that the concept of judgment, the act of judgment, is very important. And it's the card that comes right before the attainment and accomplishment and completion and new cycle of the world card, right? So judgment as a card for me has to do with, of course, discernment and making judgments, but it also has to do with the idea of a calling, the idea of a vocation or being called to a particular thing. It has to do with assessments of past and ongoing actions in the sense of judging those things. It has to do with making distinctions. And all of these things are really important. So I've chosen, again, 5. And I'll just talk about each one. They're quite different from each other. All 5 are quite different from each other. And actually for 3 of them, I want to share portions of the guidebooks because they are important context, I think. So the first judgment card that I will share is a renamed one, and it is from a wonderful deck, the Numinous Tarot by Cedar McLeod, and that is the Awakening card. So you can see here there is a figure coming out of a dark cave into the light there, and what I like about this, other than that I just think it's a beautiful deck and it's a beautiful image, is that for me this preserves a lot of what I might consider the more kind of traditional aspects of the judgment card, yet it has its own symbolism, its own imagery. It is not a angel up above with the dead rising, right? There's none of that here, but I think that even without a number and a title, I think that one would be able to discern or judge, if you will, which major arcana that this would be. And I think that that's a sign of a really effective deck design, really. That it's clear what it is without it needing to reproduce in a RWS clone type of way the exact symbolism. And in Numinous Tarot, of course, is a queer-centric, very modern deck, so you wouldn't expect to see what you would see in the Smith-Waite, and I think this is just a really smart choice. I can feel very mixed about renamings of cards. Sometimes I think that they're really amazing and really effective and really bring something extra to a deck's theme, or convey something really interesting. I think a rename can be great for dismantling some of the, gender binarism and hierarchical social arrangements that are in the traditional titles. I also think that sometimes renamings can kind of not work exactly the way that I would want them to. I think I probably mentioned in the context of talking about the death card, not really liking when the death card is renamed in a way that feels kind of sanitizing, for example. So I think renaming can kind of go either way, and it can be something I'm really into or something that I'm really not, depending. And that's a long, rambly way of getting to the fact that I think Awakening is a good rename for Judgment. I would be just as happy if this remained being called Judgment. I think it would work just as well. But I think Awakening, it feels like a good rename to me. Like, I don't think it loses anything necessarily, and I don't think it skews too much in any particular direction. So I like a lot about this. I like a lot about this card. The next one that I will share is, I think, the most traditional, in a lot of ways, depiction of all of the Judgment cards that I have picked. And this is a favorite. Oh, it's top tarot trumps, so clearly they're all favorites, right? This is the Judgment card from Le Tarot Ultraviolet, and I love this. I love this Judgment card. So we see that there is a kind of face hinted at in the clouds here, which, could evoke the angel in the Smith-Waite card. And there are these folks here who are not dead, that's for sure, standing nude in the water together with their arms up. And you can see them taking off their masks. They've all got masks that are pushed up, above their faces. So there's this aspect of showing themselves and showing themselves fully and being fully present together. And I think that this is just a really powerful image. Of course, I love that there's body diversity, in terms of all different kind of features and shapes and things like that. That's something that I look for in a deck. But I just love this aspect of Judgment that I feel like this card is getting at in terms of, opening oneself up to the world, right? And letting oneself be seen and seeing others. And I think that it's a really beautiful and really powerful image that fits really well into this deck overall. The Judgment card, I will say, is not typically my favorite card in a deck. Like, even in decks that I really, really love, the Judgment card is not one that stands out to me as, oh, this is a major arcana that I tend to really, really love the picture or think is really interesting. But when I went through this deck for the first time, this one really just, took my breath away in a way. I think that it's simultaneously quite traditional in some ways and quite non-traditional in others. And I think that it just says something really, really extraordinary. And it makes me very happy that this card is in the world. So that's the Judgment card from Le Tarot Ultraviolet. The next Judgment card that I chose, I will say I mostly chose it based on kind of conceptual reasons, more so than necessarily specifically artistic reasons. And that is card 20, the Hammer, from the Philosophy cards. I really love the artwork in this deck. I like a lot about this deck. Some of the depictions are quite abstract in a way, and I think that this is one. But the Hammer is a reference to philosophizing with a hammer in the context of Nietzsche's thinking. And so I'll just read a little from the Little White Book here. The Little White Book doesn't give too much, but for each of the majors it gives a quote from a philosopher, and it is mostly existentialist thinkers. But for Key 20, the hammer, they have Nietzsche, Twilight of the Idols. And if your hardness does not wish to flash and cut through, how can you one day create with me? And then the description of the card reads, in traditional tarot, judgment symbolizes judgment, a sense of self-review, and a wake-up call. The hammer symbolizes the idea of intentionally shattering tradition, the past, and all that we believed to be unchangeable fact. The hammer is a tool for reinterpretation, decontextualization, reinvention, and liberation. It is a tool for transcending the givens of our situation and of ourselves. And so I like that in this deck, judgment is taken up in this very agentic and self-directed and very active and intentional and forward-looking kind of a way. I think that in the context of a deck with this kind of theme, it makes a lot of sense. You know, if I think if I was probably designing a deck with this kind of a theme, this is where I would have gone as well, or something very much like this. And so, you know, more so than the particular artwork on the card, you know, which I think is fine. It's not my favorite piece of art in the deck necessarily, but I like the interpretation of the judgment card as the Nietzschean hammer. So I think that that's a cool take. So that's the philosophy cards. And the last two judgment cards that I chose are both very much, you know, social justice oriented, liberatory interpretations of the judgment card that I think are really incredible. And again, I want to share some guidebook for each of these. I think they're both really powerful. So the first of those, the fourth card that I'm showing, is Judgment in the Landback Tarot by Antiques Tarot. And this one, I will just read a little bit from the guidebook. The guidebook that has some post-its, you know. This land has long been held in occupation by a people who are obsessed with judgment and the belief that they reign over it exclusively. They've judged countless brown lives as unworthy in these lands and others. For centuries we died believing this judgment. No longer. Now we repaint our faces and force them to face the blood of their judgments as we rise. And then the reversed suggested meaning, there's usually a short reversed suggested meaning in the book. Your pacification is allowing oppression to continue unchecked. I think that this card is an extraordinarily powerful one. And I'm not going to read the whole entire guidebook entry, but the book goes on to describe the card as the spirit of this tarot deck. This card is the spirit of this deck. It goes on to state judgment here is not a metaphor. Right? And I think that this is just a really, really extraordinary take on this card. And again, this is another one that, going through the deck for the first time and, you know, thinking about the different interpretations of the different cards and what was chosen to be on each one, this is deeply impactful. So I really, really like this choice. And the way that it brings forward this idea of facing judgments that have been made, facing ramifications of judgment that has been made, judging judgments that have been made that are violent ongoingly, and naming them as such. I think that this is a really, really powerful judgment card. And finally, the last one that I would like to share, another very powerful one, which I would like to share from the guidebook as well. This one is from Afro Tarot 2 by Jessie Ujazi, called Judgment here as well. And she describes the imagery here. And maybe this one in some ways, in terms of the layout, this is a quite traditional looking judgment card. You have the horn being blown up here at the top. I have the guidebook. It's like this. So Jessie writes, the judgment card illustrates a Maasai man blowing a kudu horn trumpet from the sky, symbolizing a wake-up call. Below, 3 Beninese women perform a ceremonial Vodun dance over Zanzibar's slave market memorial. The judgment card indicates a spiritual awakening or life-changing transformation. In order to move forward to a next chapter, you will need to put past regrets behind you, reflect on your past experiences, seek the healing you need to release the bad and rise above. The first step to freedom starts within. And this is a very powerful image, I think. Challenging. Confronting. And I think that a judgment card should be that. And I think that, you know, in the context of this deck, this is a really extraordinary card choice. The keywords that Jessie includes for upright: judgment, announcement, karma, decision, evaluation, reflection, and resolution, clarity, renewal, restoration, forgiveness, transformation, awareness, understanding, purpose, freedom, rebirth. I like these judgment cards that put freedom in the center, that put renewal, restoration. You know, these are keywords that I don't think I see as often necessarily in kind of guidebooks or in lists of keywords, but thinking about judgment as what comes before the world, I think keywords like renewal make a lot of contextual sense. There are reflection questions in the guidebook for each of these cards. All of the cards in the deck actually have reflections with them, not just the majors, like all of the cards. And one of the reflection questions, the first one for the judgment card, is, do my actions align with my values and my beliefs? And I think that that goes to the heart of judgment in a lot of ways. And I like these depictions of judgment that really demand thinking about that. So those are my judgment cards. I'll show them again, the ones that I've chosen. The Awakening card from the Numinous Tarot. Le Jugement from Le Tarot Ultraviolet. The Hammer from the Philosophy cards. Judgment from the Land Back Tarot and Oracle of Colonization, and Judgment from Afro Tarot 2. Let me know in the comments what your top tarot trump judgment cards are, how you think about the judgment card in a reading, what you think about the Smith-Waite judgment card, anything else that you would like to tell me about the judgment card, feel free in the comments. I would love to talk about this card with you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.